Welcome back for another Turbo KMiata episode, and today we're actually going to start working with the turbo. So we've been teasing you enough with Turbo Miata stuff. I showed you the turbo 2 or 3 episodes ago by now. But we haven't actually done anything with the turbo besides make the manifold. So today we're actually going to, I don't have the real piece in my hands yet, so we're going to use revision 2, and we're going to actually bolt the turbo up to the manifold and start getting the plumbing ready for water and oil lines. So I've got everything here. So this is 10 AN turbo drain, 6 AN. So these are banjo bolts, right? Everybody knows how banjo bolts work. This is a 6 AN fitting, so it's going to convert this port here into a 6 AN line. So because everybody loves AN lines, so we'll have 6 AN feed and return, and then the feed port on these, which is this guy up here, is, I think it's like 1/8 NPT. We're going to convert it to 4 AN because we're extra. So this little guy is just going to thread right on here, and that'll feed over to that red block that we installed a couple episodes ago, and it'll be a really clean setup. Like the idiot that I am, I tried to order everything based on like a mental picture of what I needed. So I have the line going into the turbo, the feeds coming out of the turbo, everything like that. I forgot to order 90-degree 6 AN fittings. I have one just kicking around here. And I forgot to order a 4 AN fitting for the other side of the turbo feed. So I'll be able to do part of the water feed, part of the water return, the part of the oil feed, and if the last fitting shows up today, I'll be able to make the entire oil drain. Couple episodes you saw us make this guy, which is like a really nice piece. I'm gonna be probably taking the intake manifold off to install it, and then it's gonna take a 6 AN line out of here, and this is the return into the heater core pipes. I can probably just make either this entire side or half of this side and half of the feed side, because the company, I have the other 6 AN fitting for this side, but I don't have the part that's gonna thread into my block. So I don't know exactly where it's going to be, and I don't want to just guess and have an AN line that's either too short or too long. So sadly, I can't do that side. I can't finish the oil feed today, but we can make a bunch of progress regardless. So by the time this episode is over, the parts that I need are going to show up in 2 days. So by the time you see it at the end of this episode, it will hopefully be all wrapped up. But for me today, I was hoping today that I would be able to wrap up all the feed and return and water and whatnot, just because it'd be a nice big step for me. But we're gonna get as far as we can today, and yeah, so let's get to the first thing we're gonna do is bolt everything up to the turbo, and then we'll put the turbo on the car and start measuring out lines and things like that. So the first thing we're gonna do is install the oil drain. So this is the bottom of the turbo, obviously. Pretty simple. Put the gasket in here, and then this kit supplies everything. The next thing, I'm going to pop this off, but the next thing we're going to do is install, this is the feed, and then the water return on the other side with these banjo bolts. So this is what we're going to use as the oil return, or water return. So the issue, I kind of want to come straight out, because then I can come straight out and put a 90 and run the water return around the back. But what I might have to do for now is something like this. I'm not sure if I like this setup. It's nice because it gets it away from the hot side, but it also you're working really hard against, you know, you have to push water up another 2 inches, so, or I guess 1.5 inches. I'm gonna use this for now, and I'm just gonna use a 90. So worst case, if I come with a straight, it's just taking the line and turning it down here. Not a big deal. I'm gonna use one of these little guys. But sounds like a package is here, which is probably the part I need for my oil drain, so I'm gonna go grab that. It was my oil drain, which is still supposed to show up today with UPS. It is my intercooler, and not always a good sign when your intercooler has a hole in the box. So, quick look inside. They did put another piece of cardboard inside to cover the fins, but I wanted to document that just in case it is toast and I can open the box. And I bought it from Summit, so worst case I can just write them an email and see if they'll either replace it or what, but should be all right. Yeah, you guys will see it in probably a couple episodes. I gotta take it out of the box, figure out how to mount it. It's big. I'll do a comparison with Dylan's when I get there, but yeah, it's a big boy. So, all right, back to turbo stuff. So I'm not crazy pumped on this. Like I said, I'm gonna leave it for now, but it seems like a lot of extra work for the turbo, so, or for the water pump. But for now, we'll leave it for mock-up purposes. Everything on here is all set. I can thread this guy on here just to make you guys feel good. Another reason why a straight fitting right here would be clutch, because if not, I'm gonna have competing lines with oil and water. It might look cool because one's gonna come here and the other is gonna come next to it, but not sure if I'm a big fan. So, like I said, for now we'll run it. Worst case, it'll just be turning this thing 90 degrees and stuffing it in the end here. But long term, I don't think it's a solution. All right, since I'm just a one-man show here in my own garage, I had to do this solo. But the turbo's mounted up on revision 2 of the 3D printed manifold. And I noticed when I had this AN fitting on here that there's no way my hood is gonna close with, you know, an up and over. So I'm gonna have to either find out how to turn this upside down, which would be ideal, I think, or come out with a straight port, because I need to come out and around the back of the motor and into the other side. So for now, we're probably gonna route it from the other side first, you know, cut the line, take the intake off, all that stuff. But for now, we're gonna do oil feed, which is gonna come out and into here. So I'm gonna come 90 degrees like this, avoid the hot side, and it'll loop over and come into this port where I have a 90-degree fitting on the bench. So that'll cover oil feed. Oil return, we're gonna come into here. I'm waiting, this isn't the right port. Let me show you guys why. This still is gonna interfere because the radiator stops, or the fan stopped like right here. So what I ordered is a 90-degree 10 AN to 10 ORB fitting. So it should only come out to like here, which will be right over the radiator, or sway bar. And then that's going to be, oil return is going to come like this right up into the turbo. So that's the part I'm waiting on today. Hopefully the UPS guy shows up with it. It's kind of busy right now because it's right around Christmas, but yeah, that's not going to work. So we're going to do water feed. We're going to start doing this stuff for now. And let me see how far I can get. Taking this off is going to be a pain in the ass. So, but let's start with the one that I know I can do today, and that is this guy. So, not the most elegant solution because they didn't have a 4AN to 1/8 NPT. So this is a 1/8 NPT to 4AN straight with a 90-degree, tight 90-degree 4AN to 4AN swivel. So that we're gonna run now the oil up from here over to here into this fitting right here. I told you guys I could finish this today, but I can't because this is the adapter for here to here is what I'm missing. So what I'm gonna do is I'll make this fitting and I'll run the line, and then I'll run the line like, you know, a little bit longer so that I just have to cut it down when the other piece gets here and then push together, and that'll be really quick. So let's do this. Let's make this guy, because that's pretty easy. If you're ever doing AN lines, buy yourself a set of these. They're aluminum AN line, essentially soft jaws. The soft ones that are like made out of rubber won't work because they won't hold the torque. These, you can get them on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. But you can see the female side of this piece is now clamped in here, and we're gonna take this 4AN line that I cut with my trusty cutoff wheel, and we're just gonna push this. I say like it's easy. We're gonna push this into here, and you gotta really get it down, you know, until it's fully seated. There's a seating ring in there, and then I'm gonna just cut to that being done because I need both hands for it. But I'm gonna slam that in there, and then we'll flip it over and we'll thread in the other side, and that'll really be all that this side of the oil fitting needs. All right, there you can see it's pushed in, and if you look in there, you can see that the rubber ring is almost pressed up right to the threads. That's all you want. We're gonna flip this around now and clamp it in this way so that we can get a wrench on this and thread it in. Pro tip, put a little bit of, you know, some sort of oil, engine oil, assembly lube on the end of this before you put it in here. And then you're just gonna thread it in and take a wrench and just tighten these threads down until this whole thing compresses into one piece. There you have it. There's the oil feed. So we can go throw this guy on the car. So then this will run just like this, you know, perfectly away from the hot side over into this line once this fitting gets here. That'll be nice. And the next thing we're gonna work on is the oil drain. So I'm just gonna start with a straight fitting, I think. Maybe a 45 off the bottom so that we can route it over there. I'm gonna play with some options real quick. So I've settled on the 45-degree fitting, and I clocked the turbo just a little bit more. It's really easy because these are V-band cold or compressor sides. So this is literally touching the bolt over here on the VTEC solenoid, but it's fine. It'll clear everything else because it's touching up above the sealing surface. So the 45 degree is gonna let me take my 10AN at a nice gradual angle and curve and feed it down into the turbo return. If I went with a straight, it would come out, come back, come over, come down. It was really not pretty. So this is a gradual fitting. I'm gonna have to be careful here with how I run my intercooler piping, but that's with welding aluminum together, I'm sure we can make something work. So yeah, I'm gonna make this line. I'm not gonna show you guys because I'm not gonna show you every AN line. It takes forever. So I'm just gonna make this line. I'm gonna mock it up, and hopefully once that fitting arrives, we can finish this oil line today and we can get something completely done. So I'm gonna snap to this being done with YouTube Magic, and we'll move on to taking that off to do water lines. So here we go. So there it is. Here's your turbo line or turbo drain running down here, and then once the fitting shows up, we'll make it, and it'll sit right around here, which will be perfect. Let's get cracking on this side of things here. So I'm gonna take off fuel line probably from the regulator, pop this guy, actually this can stay, and then I'm going to take the intake manifold itself off, so I'll unplug it real quick and pop it off the car. All right, let's get to it. So the intake is off, and definitely not going back on today because I did not order an intake manifold gasket yet. I got to order a belt and exhaust manifold gasket, so I'm just going to do a total purchase today. Hopefully it'll be here in time and I can wrap this episode up with it. But so the plan for this guy is I'm going to put him right here like this, and then the AN fitting will come off of here, maybe with a 45, and that'll run up around the back of the motor and into the return of the turbo. And the point here is I want a continuous downflow, and the hard part is going to be right here. Is it's going to be a little bit crooked, so it's going to be hard to get like a perfect downflow, but I might be able to, when I cut this line, it's going to be a little bit longer, and just extend, try to make this as perpendicular as possible. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to chop this guy with just a box cutter, 2 hose clamps, and I'll cut back to you guys in a minute when this is installed. So there is the return installed, And you can see I put a 45-degree AN fitting on it, and that's gonna route nicely up to here, and then I can go over the trans and come out on the turbo side there. So I'm gonna run that line right now, and I'll probably finish both sides because I know I'm gonna wanna come into a 90-degree over there. So I'll finish this AN line, it's pretty easy, and we'll sort of finish one thing up here. And then I'm gonna work on the feed line, which I'm gonna kind of talk to you guys about how I'm going to do that. It's similar to this, same but different. So yeah, let's finish this guy up. I'll show you what it looks like, and then we'll move on to the last line. Okay, so there's your AN water return line. So it's going to wrap around the back, and there's plenty of slack in it, and it's going to come right here once I get this straight fitting. Even if I went 90 underneath, or if I put it up top, which I'm not going to, it would be perfect. So what I'll do is end up having it like this. It'll tuck underneath that wiring back there, so it has a constant downflow, which will be perfect. And so that's the return. And the feed line, what we're gonna do, so feed's obviously over here, and down here in this little hole right here, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, way in there, there's an Allen key, and there's a bung for the S2000s that they're essentially the same block. There's a port that comes out there, and I double checked it on James' S2000, but there's a port that comes out there with, like, it's just a barbed fitting. So I ordered one of those. We're gonna cut the end off, and we're gonna weld another one of those little AN bung fittings on, and then that'll come straight out of here, 90 degrees up, right over to this port, and it'll be a really short water feed, really tight, clean, out of the way, which will be sweet. So what I'm gonna do now is make the straight drop from here, so I can make that fitting, and I'm just gonna make it a little extra long so it hangs out down here. And once that piece shows up, I'll run to James, have it welded, and then we'll finish that line up. So I'm gonna make that real quick, and that'll probably be as far as I can get today. UPS guy came through, and this showed up. So this is 10 ORB. This is what the side on the little plate on the front of my timing cover is, and then this is 10 AN. So I'm gonna put this guy in like this, and then I'm gonna finish the AN line fitting onto this side. So this will be a straight AN fitting probably, and then that'll go from the turbo drain to this guy. So I'm gonna throw that together real quick and show you what that looks like, and then I'll be done for the day for sure. So let's do it. Second time's the charm. I had to remake the line. I made the first one, I had the 45 on the turbo side, and I'd put a 45 down here in the hopes that it would kind of kink it the right way. And all it did was make this fitting. It made this super flat, which is what you don't want. You need an angle so that the oil can drain. So I switched over, made a new line. There's still a 45 off the bottom of the turbo, and then this is just a straight fitting, and it's enough. I might put a hose clamp here just to keep it up, but it seems to want to rest pretty much in this position without any real issue. But a little extra security up here probably wouldn't hurt. So that's a wrap for today for me. I'm waiting on more parts, like I said earlier, so once those show up, I will pick this camera back up and we will get back to work. All right, before I leave, we're heading to James' shop. We're going to weld a pie cut and a V-band flange onto the crossover tube so that we can do all V-band everything, because that's the way. I want everything V-band. I want this to be as clean as possible, so this is the solution. So hopefully he's gonna let me weld the crossover tube because it's kind of out of sight. It's easier to weld, I think, than anything else here, so it'll be good practice for me. I've only ever welded really once in my life, and that was at his shop in the scene that you saw in the last episode or 2 episodes ago or whatever. So yeah, that'll be kind of cool. I was just gonna do some stainless welding, hopefully. Yeah, so let's go. It's about 30 minutes away from here, so I will pull you back up when we get there. So I'm back from James' shop, and as you guys saw, I did some welding. Some of it went really well, some of it went not really well. Only my second time ever really picking up a welding torch at all. This is the first piece I welded, which was last time I was at James' shop. So there's some beads there, but this was all I did, and a tiny piece of sheet metal. I've never stuck anything together, so this was that. So big shout out to James for we were there for like 4 hours. He could have probably done this in an hour, but it was cool to learn, and I'm gonna pick up a welder in the future. So having a resource like him to be willing to show me, even though in theory it means he gets less work from me in the future because I will hopefully do things myself. But really cool experience. I had a lot of fun welding. It's awesome. So a couple things we did: put two 7.5 degree pie cuts on here, and so this angle's up now 15 degrees, and this is a V-band couple so that when I make the downpipe it'll hook up to the V-band. Show you the good side of my welds. So here's where I started. This was the first time TIG welding anything besides that pipe I showed you a minute ago. This is the second pass, and I'm pretty proud of this. This was the third pass onto the V-band, which is gapped. So James said it would be harder, and it seemed to go better. So pretty stoked on that myself. We're finally back. All the parts showed up like a month after I ordered them, but it's all here. I ran to James yesterday and had this welded up. So if you look at this guy, it is originally a water feed for a S2000. It goes over to something on the passenger or driver's side, but regardless, we chopped the end off it and welded this 6AN fitting on it. You can see James did a really nice job. And then I just pipe wrapped the end of it so that it doesn't leak when it's installed. And that guy is gonna sneak in to this hole right here. I already took the fitting out. It looks like this for those of you guys that are trying to do this. It's a 10mm Allen key, and it's tight in there. Like, I had to use my 3-foot long breaker bar and crank down on the thing for it to even start to come loose. But it does come out. It's just in there so it doesn't leak from the factory. This guy's gonna be replacing it. This is a 22mm, and yeah, I'm just gonna tighten it up in there, and we can finish our oil and water feed return setup for the turbo, slap the intercooler, or slap the intake back on, and this episode will be a wrap. So let's throw this guy in. So there you can see it right there. It's all the way in there. Mind the phone flashlight, but it's all the way in there. Now we can set our 90-degree fitting off of the turbo for the water feed. So we're gonna do that next. So this is the line we're gonna use for the feed. It's a little long right now, but it's gonna come right to here, and we're gonna take a 90-degree fitting from here and up into there. So it should be pretty simple. I have 90-degree fittings, so we'll put that on first, figure out the length, cut this line, and then we should be all set. Just as promised, there's the return. I'll fit it up in here. It's actually a really nice fit, and actually cleans up everything really well. So you've got oil return, water feed, oil feed, water return, gradual slope around the backside, which mates into this custom fitting, which is essentially the same thing from the other side. And that's all of the liquids that the turbo is going to need. Obviously we'll need a downpipe, and obviously we'll need intercooler and intake stuff, but for now I'm going to throw the intake back on because I'm going to want to start mocking up intercooler stuff soon. Huge progress. By the time you guys see this episode, I might have the exhaust manifold, the real one, in my hand, which will be sweet. Depends if it might be a week or two after, but either way, super cool, super pumped on it. So yeah, let's throw that intake manifold back on. That's a wrap for this episode. Intake is on, everything is tight. A few lines are on. I forgot to tighten the line that goes underneath the water return, so I had to kind of finagle a wrench in there, but works. Turbo lines are all set. I didn't tighten anything of them down because obviously we're going to be taking it off to put the real manifold on, hopefully in a couple weeks. But for all intents and purposes, everything is ready. So that's going to be the end of this episode. You guys saw me weld in this episode. I had a boatload of fun doing it, so I bought a welder. I bought an AHP 201XD. It's a TIG and stick. I'm only going to use the TIG part of it. It will show up in a couple days. It'll be here by the time this episode's out for sure, and I'll have been playing with it probably constantly. I bought a bunch of weld coupons, and I have a bunch of filler wire. Tanks over there. Welding stuff's over here, and there, and there, and everywhere. So I've got stuff to play with. James is a great welder. There's lots of things I'm still gonna have to bring him, but I need to learn this skill on my own because I think it's awesome. It's super useful for like a garage style stuff like we're doing here. And I'm gonna make my own downpipe. I'm gonna hopefully make my own intercooler piping. I'm gonna make Dylan's downpipe for his turbo when he shows up. So it's just easier to do it here instead of load the car on a trailer, drive it there, spend a couple days there, bring it back, and it's a great skill to learn. So bear with me. I'm sure the beginner welds are going to be pretty beginner, but I got a lot of good friends like James who's willing to help me. He was kind of sad. He's like, I lost my favorite customer, but he's willing to help me be better at welding, which is awesome. So big thank you, James. That might be the next episode for this, depending. I'm waiting on some parts for the trans still due to a screw up. So we'll see kind of how things flow. If not, it'll be the episode after that. But yeah, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. I will see you next Saturday. And make sure you like, subscribe, comment, do everything. We love it all. If you didn't like the video, dislike, whatever. Great. Dylan's episode is going to be Wednesday, which is 4 days from now. My episode will be a week from now, next Saturday. But stay tuned. I think Amazon just dropped off more welding stuff. And I'll see you next week.